Imagine this, one exercise that improves your cardiovascular health, strengthens your bones, improves your mood, and when done consistently has been shown to reduce all-cause mortality. Drumroll please. Meet walking, or also known as the Gait cycle. Flashy, I know, but hear me out. Your ability to walk and move well is directly correlated to your health span and overall well-being. Having worked with people from all over the world on this exact topic, I've seen firsthand the implications it can have on an individual's life. From herniated discs to hip replacements, nearly everyone can benefit from improving their Gait cycle. So in this video, you're going to learn 4 gait training exercises that will put you one step ahead, quite literally. Let's get into it. Before we jump in, let's take 30 seconds to get a better understanding of what the Gait cycle is, as well as how we plan on training it. Your Gait cycle consists of 2 phases, those being the swing phase as well as the stance phase. Quite simply, these phases represent points where our foot is in contact with the ground and when it is not. Throughout this cycle, there are a myriad of different functions happening in the body. And although our body is an intelligent system, sometimes injury, trauma, disease, or just poor patterning can lead to an inefficient gait cycle motion. So throughout the exercises today, you're gonna learn how to build strength, balance, and coordination between these different cycles so your body is adequately prepared for anything that may come its way. So for our first exercise, we're gonna work through some hamstring rollouts. I find a lot of the time when I'm working with people and we're trying to improve their gait mechanics, one muscle that is often really bound up and tight, and also that just doesn't have a lot of efficiency, is the hamstring. So we're gonna get used to primarily working this muscle and not going into things like our lower back through the phase of extension. So for this, you can grab yourself a medicine ball if you have access to one, a basketball, a soccer ball, a foam roller. Those will all work here. And what we're gonna do is start on our back. You can also grab a book for your neck if that feels a little bit more comfortable. And we're gonna take the feet up onto the tool of your choice. And what I want you to do with your hands is take them to your lower back. And what we're gonna start with is just not being in an excessive state of extension. We're just gonna try to find kind of a natural lordotic curve through the lumbar. And then we're gonna start to apply pressure down into the tool of our choice with our heels. Now, keeping the lower back on this angle, we're gonna slowly start to lift the pelvis up without the lower back going into more extension. Now what I want you to do is try to keep the lower back more or less in that position, and then you're gonna start to roll the tool of your choice in towards the hips. This is where you're gonna start to feel the hamstrings come online and contract. Now maintaining this pelvic positioning, so we're not gonna allow the hips to drop, we're gonna start to roll the ball away. And this is where you're gonna start to feel the hamstrings come online in a pretty big way. And we're actually gonna be taking the muscles through their fully contracted state as much as we can. And then we're maintaining some of that sensation as we start to go through the phase of extension. What I would recommend here is work through anywhere between 8 to 10 reps. Go pretty slow. Think about 3 to 4 seconds going out and then 3 to 4 seconds coming back in. So for this next exercise, we're gonna start to work through some rotational lunges. So we've worked through lunges and kind of this hybrid hinge position quite a bit on this channel, but I'll give you a quick review. Really, we're just gonna be in a split stance position. We're gonna focus on just sitting the pelvis back, making sure that we're finding adequate tension kind of through the leg and into the floor. And then what we're gonna do for today is we're gonna start to add some upper body rotation, ideally keeping some of the feedback into the floor. So what this is gonna look like is I'm gonna start with my right leg in front, and I'm gonna start with my upper body rotated away from whatever leg I have in front. So I'm rotated to my left in this case. What we're gonna think about doing is using our arms to start to pull ourselves down into the lunge. So I'm kind of creating some depth, and then we're gonna sequence the arms first, and then we're gonna start to stand up, and now comes the important part. We're gonna be mindful that the hips don't over rotate back to the left. We're gonna try to keep a slight rotation of the hip to the right as we rotate only the upper body a little bit to the left. Then my arms will go. I'm gonna refine that depth. I'm keeping the heaviness on this lead leg. My arms go first. I start to stand up and then counter rotate away. Some things to watch out for is that the hips don't over rotate back towards the direction of the upper body, as well as the angle of your knee here. When we're coming down and standing back up, we just want to be mindful that the angle of the knee is staying pretty much the same throughout. What I would suggest working through here is anywhere between 8 to 10 reps. Think about 3 to 4 seconds down, half a second at the bottom, 3 to 4 seconds back up. And that way you're really starting to build that integration from the floor through the leg, and then we're starting to link that into the upper body. So moving on to our next exercise, we're gonna work on a split stance step. So we're gonna work on the integration element of the hamstrings that we started with, and then we're gonna start to incorporate some of that rotation that we were just working on in our second exercise. So what you're gonna do is come into that loaded position that we were just starting in the second exercise, and we're gonna kind of find the depth of that bottom portion with the rotation. Now what we're gonna start to do is lead with the arms, just like we were doing, but now primarily using this lead leg here. We're gonna think about applying pressure down, and then we're also gonna try to pull back. So you can imagine with my right foot here, I'm trying to create active tension, drawing back into the floor this way. And by me creating that tension going back, that's gonna allow the posterior chain or the back side of my leg to get a little bit more active for me to then push and take a step off of. So now I'm using that to send me into that opposing side. You can see my upper body rotated with that, and then my arms will sequence, and I'm gonna find that same sort of hip position again. So now we're really starting to work on the elements of how we can load into the hips, and we can use that to take us through a step forward. This would be a more exaggerated tension for what the body would go through when we are actually walking, but it allows our body to understand where we want tension to kind of get loaded initially, and then how we can use that to distribute momentum and force to take us through this walking motion. We're also working on the elements of how to primarily load tension into the hips, again, in a little bit more of an exaggerated way, but that's okay. But more importantly, we're working on this deceleration element where I kind of have to catch and absorb force here, which is exactly what happens anytime that we go through our gait cycle. I would suggest working through these for about 10 to 12 repetitions on either side, and see as you go through it if you can make it a little bit more fluid as you kind of load and unload that tension from one side to the other. So let's get into my favorite part of any training routine, and that is starting to add some rhythm and a little bit of flow. So you can grab a dumbbell, you can grab a water bottle, anything that's just gonna allow you to create a little bit of momentum with. Again, we're gonna come back to that split stance position. This is gonna be something you wanna get very comfortable with, because when we are walking, this is the position that we will often find ourselves in. So grab the tool of your choice, and what we're gonna do is work on rhythmically getting into the hips. So we're gonna just start with a swing and a catch. So you can see I'm just allowing the dumbbell in this case to kind of pull me into the pelvis. I'm keeping the knee angle the same, and then I'm standing up with that. Now once you get used to the flow of this, what we're gonna start to incorporate is a step, because what good is working on our gait cycle training if we're not actually going through the walking motion? So what we're gonna do is allow that rhythm to pull us into the pelvis, and then we're gonna take a step forward as we come into a curl with it. Now from here, what we're gonna do is first step back. So what I want you to think is you're gonna move away from the hand. I move away from the hand, and then the rhythm is gonna restart the entire motion. So now the rhythm goes back, I come forward, I move away, and I'm back in the hips. This is gonna take a little while to kind of get used to the coordination and the feel of, but once you get used to it, this exercise is awesome. You're working on the elements of loading things elastically into the hips. We're starting to work around a rhythm, which is something that we have to interact with on a daily basis, that being gravity and how our rhythm kind of works around that, as well as we're focusing again on that deceleration. So I kind of catch and then I'm out. I would suggest working through this for about 12 to 14 reps. But again, get used to the coordination of it. Get used to maybe even just pausing at this top position. Allow yourself to go to and from different points of stability so that you're ingraining good habits and good patterns into the body. Now this last exercise is very revolutionary. Probably haven't heard of it, probably haven't done it much. And that is simply just walking more. If you just go outside, you put in more repetitions, your body is a very adaptable and intelligent system. So if you want to get better at walking, then why not just go and do more walking? All the exercises that we just did here are great. We're focusing on the elements of balance, coordination. You're working on loading the proper musculature that you'd find yourself activating when you go through walking. But if you don't actually practice walking itself, then you're never gonna get better at the thing. So this is all to say, get your exercises in, but even more importantly, get outside, enjoy the weather, take in the elements, feel your body, and have some fun. Get your walking in.